Welcome to the Political Checkmate, and today I'm going to checkmate Kyle Kulinski's video called Stossel, Eliminate FEMA because Walmart is better. And one of the reasons why I want to respond to this video is I want to defend one of the people who inspired me to become a libertarian, and that would be John Stossel. So here we go.
John Stossel of Fox News and Fox Business is going to attack government regulation and FEMA on Fox and Friends. Let's watch.
Well, ever feel like government makes too many plans that come to naught? Well, John Stossel says that's not a coincidence. It's time for the government to be more spontaneous. Watch this.
Suppose you'd never seen a skating rink and I told you I want to lay down some ice and I'm going to charge people money to strap sharp blades to their feet. And they're going to zip around in the ice, young and old, skilled and unskilled. And my only rule is go counterclockwise.
Well, it turns out that crazing ice skating rink idea actually works. So should government take a hint and back off a little bit? Joining us now from our sister network, Fox Business, is John Stossel. John, thanks for joining us. It's kind of a bold idea. You're saying that not every human activity needs to be planned from above. Some sort of spontaneously work themselves out pretty well.
Frederick Hayek called it the spontaneous order. This is how most of life works. And if you hadn't seen the skating rink, you would say, no, you need skating police, need someone to say, you people go in this direction. We tried that. We made it worse. People fall down. Learning this changed my life, what I have on this show tonight. And this just, think of how much of life is spontaneous. The family, language. We had one planned language, Esperanto. The intellectuals said, this will make it better. It'll be simpler. Nobody speaks it. Jazz, there's no direction. So much of life is spontaneous, but our instinct is to say, government, give us a plan. Government must do that.
And you cite natural disasters as a good example here, and you really plan for that.
Well, after Katrina, Walmart and private charities help people in many more ways than FEMA did. Because FEMA is incompetent because government tends to be, but also Walmart every day needs to know what people need. And they were ready. They have more weather forecasters than some of the local governments do.
So ban FEMA because Walmart. How can anybody be silly enough to think that Walmart would seriously take over all of the things that FEMA does? To give you a basic understanding here of just how much FEMA did in both cases, they spent $120.5 billion on the Gulf region post-Hurricane Katrina. $120.5 billion. Is that something that Walmart is going to do voluntarily? How exactly would the profit motive fit into that? Could you imagine having that conversation, the board having that conversation? Hey, guys, should we take $120.5 billion and say, fuck our bottom line, fuck profit, fuck the workers, fuck everything. Let's just go ahead and give it to the Gulf because of Hurricane Katrina. Inconceivable. So there's no way you can say Walmart or any for-profit company can replace FEMA. The point of a for-profit company is to make profit. Now, I'm not demonizing that. Sometimes it makes sense to have a profit motive. There's no problem with that. But to pretend like in that lane that they get to cross over into our lane, no, stay in your lane. FEMA has its own lane. It's supposed to respond to emergencies. Walmart is better if you want to buy toilet paper and goldfish. Again, the fact that he uses that talking point and thinks it's convincing is amazing. Now, also on Hurricane Sandy, they spent $4 billion and counting so far, according to the CBO. Is any private company going to spend $4 billion to try to rebuild a region after a hurricane?
First off, a good portion of FEMA's aid goes towards its administration cost. According to the GAO, from 2004 to 2013, FEMA spent $12.7 billion on administrative cost, or 12% of $95.2 billion towards disaster relief. Also, a report from Homeland Security Departments found that FEMA lost nearly $257 million worth of supplies to Puerto Rico. This is just one of the many cases that FEMA has lost millions upon millions of dollars. I would also like to point out that FEMA truly has no money because FEMA's money comes from the people through the coercive force of taxes. So while Kyle Kulinski's argument about Walmart, my response is Walmart could be one of the businesses there could be a bunch of other businesses helping and also nonprofit charities coming through to help give aid to people.
Of course not. And if you say, well, there should be private insurance that deals with this stuff, well, there was a time when the government wanted private insurance to deal with a lot of the disaster relief, but private insurance outright denied in many respects. Like there are certain houses that are on beachfronts where people want to get private insurance, but they say you're too big of a risk. We're not going to give it to you. So if you lose your house, you're on your own. So the government has to step in and insure those houses. And you know who one of the people is that ended up buying into that program where the government insures them and they have a beachfront house? John fucking Stossel. I shit you not. He's spoken about this on air before. He's like, well, gosh, yeah, I'm against it in principle, but sure, I benefit from it. No problem. Look up the word hypocrite, son.
Well, Kyle, John Stossel is not a hypocrite because he may have benefited from the government insurance, but you can still oppose the existence of it. Kind of like I may use a cheat code in video games, but still believe that the video game developers should get rid of the cheat codes. As the saying goes, hate the game, not the player, in this scenario. Also, the National Flood Insurance Program that John Stossel is in disproportionately benefits wealthy, since the CBO reports that the NFIP insured homes is about twice that of American homes, and 80% of NFIP households are in counties that rank in the top income quintile. So it basically mainly benefits the rich from this program. Since the government is doing this form of insurance, it is basically creating a moral hazard where people are more likely to have homes near the beaches than otherwise would have happened.
Look up the word hypocrite. And then his overall point about the ice rink. You really just use the existence of ice rinks to argue against all regulation. See, this is my problem with the kind of thinking that you get from John Stossel. In his mind, and in a lot of libertarians' minds, the issue is we should have no regulations whatsoever. The government should do nothing. And look, the opposite end of the spectrum, you could say, is communist, where they want everything is government, essentially. And then in their mind, they have the argument about how the state dissolves because everything is the state. So if everything is the state, but that means everything isn't the state and there is no state. We live in a utopian society. Whatever. But either way, these are extreme ways of thinking. The issue is not, should we have no government and no rules at all, or all the government ever and all the rules we could think of? The issue is what makes sense in the middle. So with ice rinks, for example, it just so happens that that's an area where you don't need that many rules. He acts like liberals are out there arguing that, no, we should have more rules for ice rinks. I've never heard a liberal make that argument ever. It turns out that an ice rink is very simple and all you need is one rule of go counterclockwise or whatever the fuck it is. But there are other areas in life where you need regulations and you need rules. There is no spontaneous order when it came to how they sell meat in China, where there's totally lax regulation, and they ended up selling rat meat and acted like it was a different kind of meat. You need government officials and regulators to step in and say, oh, this is rat meat. This isn't the meat you're selling it as. Get rid of it. Gone. Or the issue of toxic honey that we import into the U.S. We have honey that we're shipping into the U.S. that has illegal antibiotics that are unsafe in there, and also heavy metals. Now, if you had regulations, then you wouldn't have to worry about people getting heavy metal poisoning 20 or 30 years down the road if they eat a lot of honey. If you have no regulations, people eat this honey that has illegal antibiotics and heavy metals in there. They don't even know that that's what they're eating. And then they get sick years later. They don't even know why. So you need regulators in that respect to stop the illegal antibiotics and the heavy metals. You need people, a cop on the beat looking out for everybody. In John Stossel's mind, he thinks the market needs no cops whatsoever. The market itself needs no regulation whatsoever. And also, look, man.
The point of John Stossel's analogy with the ice rink is that people figure things out without a central planner. After all, when we are at a friend's house, and if they offer food to us, we don't demand government to come in and inspect the food. Instead, we would generally accept the food because we grow trust with them. Kind of like if a restaurant gave a person food poisoning, we would avoid that restaurant because of its ruined reputation. I, for one, don't believe we should have any regulation because it could result in regulatory capture. Instead, we should have a business like Underwriters Laboratories giving a stamp of approval of whether or not a product is safe or not. And business and people would reject a product if the product does not have a seal of approval. I will recommend people to read this Mises article for more information, since people want to know they are in the right hands, and businesses want a seal of approval because killing customers would be bad for business. On the rat meat story, those people got arrested for it, and they still did the crime even though there was regulation.
Sam Cedar uses this argument all the time, and I think he's right to do it when he's debating libertarians. He says, dude, you can theorize all you want and philosophize all you want, but when it comes down to it, if there's an earthquake, a bad earthquake, would you rather be in a place that has strict building codes or a place that has no building codes? If the person says no building codes, they're just fucking lying to you. They're just fucking lying to you. I mean, we saw what happened in Haiti. Of course, lax building codes and regulations. And, they're a less developed country, and an earthquake hits, and it's absolute devastation everywhere. Now, of course, you can have devastation in modern nations as well, depending on how bad the earthquake is, but the chances are much better that the buildings aren't going to collapse in on themselves, killing thousands of people if you have buildings.
Who is saying there would be no inspection, since under a libertarian society, we would have agencies like Underwriter Laboratories inspect houses to make sure they are safe to live in? I have a question. Why would you believe that government regulation is all that special, since the government has enforced dangerous rules on building stuff, such as requiring that building manufacturers use asbestos? On the topic of Haiti, that could be the result of them being a less developed country. In one section of the book, Applied Economics, Thinking Beyond Stage 1, by economist Thomas Sowell, it talks about how in the past, in the 1900s, there was a bunch of deaths in natural disasters, while a couple decades later, with a more powerful natural disaster, there was a lot less deaths than before. Thomas Sowell points out that it is because of economic growth that we have less deaths, and the same book talks about how most natural disaster deaths happen in less developed countries than rich countries. And that is most likely because of how wealthy countries are, since they're able to afford better quality materials. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and please donate to my Patreon so I can make more videos and have your video requests checkmated. And thanks for watching, and have a nice day.